Captain Sarah Viper Martinez had always been different from other pilots. While her fellow aviators decorated their lockers with family photos and motivational quotes, Sarah kept a single black and white picture of her grandfather's P-51 Mustang from World War II. The old fighter plane reminded her why she chose to fly the A-10 Thunderbolt, an aircraft most pilots called ugly and outdated. The morning sun blazed over the Nevada desert as Sarah walked across the tarmac toward her A-10, the massive GAU-8. Cannon jutting from the nose made the plane look like a flying tank. Other pilots joked that the A-10 was built around its gun, but Sarah knew better. This machine was built for one purpose: destroying enemy targets and protecting ground troops. Sarah had earned her call sign, Viper, during her first combat deployment in Afghanistan. When Taliban fighters had pinned down a Marine unit in a narrow valley, Sarah dove her A-10 through heavy anti-aircraft fire. She made 7 attack runs, each one more dangerous than the last. The Marines later said her precision strikes looked like a viper striking its prey, swift, deadly, and perfectly aimed. Today was different, though. Sarah wasn't preparing for combat in some distant country. Instead, she was about to face the most challenging mission of her career right here on American soil. The Pentagon had organized a joint training exercise between Air Force pilots and Navy SEALs. The goal was simple: test whether close air support could effectively help special operations teams in urban environments. Commander Jake "Steele" Thompson led the SEAL team chosen for the exercise. Steele had earned his reputation through 15 years of dangerous missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other classified locations around the world. His team had never failed a mission, and Steele took pride in that perfect record. He believed that SEALs were the ultimate warriors, capable of handling any situation without help from other branches of the military. Steele gathered his 12-man team in the briefing room before the exercise began. Maps of the mock city covered every wall. The training facility had been designed to look like a Middle Eastern urban area, complete with narrow streets, tall buildings, and hidden passages. "Listen up," Steele said, his voice carrying the authority of countless successful operations. "Today we're working with some Air Force pilot. I know what you're thinking. We've never needed air support before, and we don't need it now. But the brass wants to see if close air support can help us in tight urban situations." Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, Steele's second-in-command, raised his hand. "What kind of aircraft are we dealing with, Commander?" "An A-10, Steele replied, unable to hide his skepticism. "Flying tank, they call it. Slow, old, and built for open battlefields, not precision work in cities. The pilot will try to provide support while we clear buildings and neutralize targets." The SEALs exchanged glances. They had worked with air support before, but usually with fast jets that stayed high above the battlefield. The A-10 was different. It was designed to fly low and slow, getting close to ground forces. Most SEAL operations required stealth and precision, qualities that didn't seem compatible with an aircraft carrying a massive cannon. "Our mission is to infiltrate the mock city, locate and neutralize 5 high-value targets, and extract without casualties," Steele continued. "The pilot will monitor our progress and provide support if we request it. But remember, we've completed hundreds of missions without air support. This exercise is just to test new tactics." Meanwhile, Sarah was conducting her own mission briefing with her ground crew. She had studied the SEAL team's personnel files and mission history. Steele's team was impressive, she had to admit. Their success rate was nearly perfect, and they had earned respect throughout the special operations community. "The SEALs think they don't need us," said Technical Sergeant Maria Gonzalez, Sarah's crew chief. "Word around the base is that their commander considers this exercise a waste of time." Sarah smiled as she checked her flight gear. "That's fine. Actions speak louder than opinions. If they need help, I'll be ready. If they don't, I'll learn something about how the best ground teams operate." The exercise was scheduled to last 6 hours. The SEAL team would enter the mock city from the north. While Sarah would patrol overhead in her A-10, radio communications would allow them to coordinate if necessary, but both sides expected the SEALs to complete their mission independently. as Sarah strapped into her cockpit. She felt the familiar excitement that came before every flight. The A-10's twin engines provided a deep, reassuring rumble. Unlike sleek fighter jets, the A-10 felt solid and dependable. It wasn't built for speed or fancy maneuvers. It was built to survive and fight in the most dangerous environments. Steele's team moved through their final equipment checks with military precision. Each SEAL carried specialized weapons, night vision equipment, explosives, and communication gear. They had trained together for years, developing an almost telepathic understanding of each other's movements and intentions. "Remember," Steele told his team as they prepared to enter the training area, "this exercise has been designed to test air-ground coordination. The scenario includes enemy forces that might be difficult for ground troops to handle alone. But we faced worse situations in real combat. Trust your training, watch your sectors, and complete the mission." The mock city stretched across several square miles of desert. Building facades created realistic urban terrain, while hidden speakers would provide sound effects of enemy fire and civilian activity. Pop-up targets represented enemy combatants, while other figures represented civilians that had to be protected. Exercise controllers monitored everything from a central command post. They could modify the scenario in real time, adding new threats or changing mission parameters to test how well the SEAL team and A-10 pilot could adapt and work together. As the exercise officially began, Sarah lifted her A-10 into the clear Nevada sky. Below, Steele's team disappeared into the maze of streets and buildings. Both sides were confident in their abilities, but neither fully understood what challenges lay ahead in the carefully designed training scenario. The stage was set for a confrontation between two different philosophies of warfare: the SEAL belief in small team precision and the A-10 pilot's faith in overwhelming firepower applied with surgical accuracy. The first hour of the exercise went exactly as Steele had predicted. His SEAL team moved through the mock city like ghosts, clearing buildings with practiced efficiency. They located and neutralized 2 of the 5 target enemies without triggering any alarms or civilian casualties. Steele felt satisfied that his team was proving air support unnecessary for elite ground forces. Sarah circled overhead in her A-10, maintaining radio contact but staying out of the SEAL's way. She used her targeting systems to track the team's progress through the urban terrain. The A-10's advanced sensors allowed her to see heat signatures and movement patterns that would be invisible to ground forces. She noticed several potential threats that the SEALs hadn't detected yet, but Steele's team seemed to be handling everything smoothly. "Viper, this is Steele," came the commander's voice over the radio. "We're proceeding to Target 3. No assistance required? Everything is under control." Sarah acknowledged the transmission but kept watching her displays carefully. Her training had taught her to look for patterns and changes in enemy behavior. Something about this exercise felt different from standard SEAL operations. The enemy positions seemed too well coordinated, too strategically placed for a normal training scenario. 20 minutes later, Steele's team approached the 3rd target building. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value enemy leader was hiding on the 2nd floor of a concrete structure surrounded by narrow alleyways. The building's design created perfect conditions for an ambush, but Steele's team had cleared similar structures dozens of times before. Rodriguez took point as the team moved into position. "Building secured from the outside, Commander. No visible sentries or defensive positions. Looks like a standard clear and capture." Steele nodded and signaled for his team to breach the front entrance. But as they moved toward the building, hidden speakers throughout the mock city suddenly erupted with the sound of gunfire, explosions, and shouting voices. The exercise controllers had just escalated the scenario dramatically. "Contact! Multiple enemy positions!" shouted Petty Officer Kevin Barnes from the rear of the formation. Pop-up targets had appeared simultaneously from windows, rooftops, and doorways throughout the surrounding area. The training scenario had just transformed from a stealth mission into a full-scale urban battle. Steele's team immediately took cover and began returning fire, but they found themselves surrounded by enemies on all sides. The mock city's design forced them into a deadly crossfire situation. Every time they moved toward one group of targets, another group opened fire from a different direction. "This isn't a normal training exercise," Rodriguez called out over the simulated gunfire. Someone changed the parameters. "We're looking at least 30 enemy positions in a coordinated ambush." From her position overhead, Sarah could see the entire tactical situation unfolding. Her A-10 sensors showed heat signatures, representing enemy positions that the SEALs couldn't see from ground level. The exercise controllers had created a scenario specifically designed to overwhelm even the most elite ground forces. "Steele, this is Viper," Sarah called over the radio. "I'm seeing multiple enemy positions surrounding your location. You've got shooters on the rooftops at your 2, 4, and 10 o'clock positions. There's also a heavy weapons team setting up in the building to your north." Steele's pride made him reluctant to admit that his team needed help. "Negative, Viper, we can handle this situation. SEALs don't retreat from fights." But the tactical situation continued to deteriorate. The enemy forces had positioned themselves expertly, using the urban terrain to their advantage. Steele's team was trapped in a kill zone with limited cover and no clear escape route. Every time they tried to advance, hidden enemies opened fire from unexpected angles. Petty Officer Sarah Kim, the team's medic, was treating simulated wounds on 2 team members who had been hit by training rounds. "Commander, we need to reassess this situation. The enemy has us pinned down and we're taking casualties." Steele watched his perfect mission record slipping away. His team was the best in the Navy, but they were facing an impossible tactical situation. The exercise controllers had designed a scenario that required air support to succeed, and Steele was too proud to admit it. Sarah continued monitoring the situation from above. She could see enemy reinforcements moving toward the SEAL team's position. The exercise was about to become much worse for the ground forces. "Steele, you've got enemy vehicles approaching from the east. Looks like technical vehicles with heavy machine guns. They'll reach your position in approximately 3 minutes." The sound of heavy engines echoed through the mock city as the simulated enemy vehicles moved into position. Steele realized that his team was about to face overwhelming firepower. The narrow alleyways that had provided cover were about to become death traps. "All units, prepare for heavy contact," Steele commanded. But his voice carried a note of uncertainty that his team had never heard before. The perfect SEAL commander was facing his first tactical defeat. Rodriguez moved closer to Steele's position. "Commander, maybe it's time to accept air support. This scenario is designed to test joint operations, not prove that SEALs can handle everything alone." Steele's jaw tightened as he considered his options. Accepting air support would mean admitting that his team couldn't complete the mission independently, but refusing help would likely result in total mission failure and simulated casualties among his men. Sarah waited patiently in her A-10, ready to provide support the moment Steele requested it. She had identified 12 separate enemy positions that posed immediate threats to the SEAL team. Her A-10's cannon could eliminate most of them in a single attack run, but only if Steele was willing to coordinate with air support. The simulated enemy vehicles were now 1 minute away from the SEAL team's position. Steele had to make a decision quickly or watch his perfect mission record end in spectacular failure. "Viper, this is Steele," came the reluctant transmission. "We might need some assistance with enemy positions to our north and east." Sarah smiled grimly as she banked her A-10 toward the target area. The proud SEAL commander was about to learn what the A-10 Thunderbolt could accomplish in the hands of an expert pilot. The real test of joint operations was about to begin. Sarah had been waiting for this moment since the exercise began. As Steele's reluctant request for assistance crackled through her headset, she was already positioning her A-10 for an attack run. The twin engines roared as she descended toward the mock city, her targeting systems locked onto the enemy positions threatening the SEAL team. "Steele, this is Viper beginning my approach. I need you to mark your exact position with infrared strobes so I don't hit friendly forces. Keep your heads down. This is going to be loud." Steele quickly deployed infrared markers that would be visible to Sarah's night vision systems but invisible to the simulated enemy forces. His team took cover behind concrete barriers as the distinctive sound of the A-10's engines grew louder overhead. Sarah's first target was the heavy weapons position on the rooftop north of the SEALs. Her targeting computer calculated wind speed, altitude, and distance as she lined up for the attack. The A-10 cannon was designed to destroy tanks, but Sarah had trained extensively in precision strikes against smaller targets. "Gun run, north building, 30 seconds," Sarah announced over the radio. The A-10 dove toward the target like a massive bird of prey. Sarah's years of training had taught her to remain calm during attack runs, but her heart always raced during the final moments before firing. At exactly the right moment, she squeezed the trigger. The A-10 cannon fired 70 rounds per second, creating a sound like thunder mixed with a chainsaw. The depleted uranium rounds, simulated by training rounds in this exercise, would have torn through the concrete building in real combat. The pop-up targets representing enemy soldiers disappeared instantly. "North position eliminated," Sarah reported as she pulled up and banked for another attack run. "Steele, you should have clear movement to the east now." But Steele and his team were staring in amazement at the destruction Sarah had just unleashed. The precision of the attack was incredible. She had eliminated the enemy position without damaging any nearby structures that might contain civilians. The old, slow A-10 had just demonstrated surgical precision that rivaled the SEAL's own marksmanship. "Holy shit," whispered Petty Officer Barnes. "I've never seen anything like that." Steele pushed aside his surprise and focused on the tactical situation. The enemy vehicles were still approaching from the east, and his team needed to move quickly to avoid being trapped again. "Viper, we've got enemy vehicles approaching from grid reference 347 to 521. Can you handle them?" Sarah was already turning toward the new targets. Her sensors had identified 2 technical vehicles carrying heavy machine guns, exactly the type of threat that could devastate infantry forces in urban combat. "I see them, Steele. 2 vehicles moving fast on the main road. You might want to find hard cover. Vehicle strikes create a lot of flying debris." Steele's team pressed themselves against concrete walls as Sarah lined up her second attack run. The approaching vehicles were moving at high speed, making them challenging targets even for an experienced pilot. Sarah would have only one chance: to destroy both vehicles before they reached the SEAL team's position. The A-10 screamed overhead at low altitude, Sarah's targeting computer tracking the moving vehicles. At the perfect moment, she fired a burst from the A-10 cannon, then immediately adjusted her aim and fired again. Both simulated vehicles erupted in clouds of smoke and debris as the training rounds found their targets. "Both vehicles destroyed," Sarah announced. "You're clear to advance, Steele." But the exercise controllers weren't finished testing the limits of joint operations. As Steele's team began moving toward their next objective, new threats appeared throughout the mock city. Enemy forces seemed to multiply faster than the SEALs could eliminate them. "This is getting ridiculous," Rodriguez muttered as more pop-up targets appeared from windows and doorways. "How many enemy forces are supposed to be in this city?" Sarah watched from above as the tactical situation continued to evolve. The exercise controllers were clearly pushing both the SEAL team and the A-10 pilot to their limits. Every time they solved one problem, 2 more appeared. "Steele, I'm seeing enemy reinforcements moving in from multiple directions. Looks like squad-sized elements approaching from the south, west, and northeast. They're trying to surround your position again." Steele realized that this exercise had moved far beyond normal training parameters. The scenario was designed to test whether air-ground coordination could overcome seemingly impossible odds. His team's usual tactics weren't sufficient for this level of enemy activity. "Viper, we need continuous air support to complete this mission. Can your aircraft handle multiple attack runs?" Sarah checked her fuel and ammunition levels. The A-10 carried enough cannon rounds for several more attack runs, and she had plenty of fuel remaining. More importantly, she was starting to understand the exercise controller's intentions. I can stay on station for at least 3 more hours, Steele, but we need to coordinate our movements better. This isn't about air support helping ground forces. It's about ground and air forces working as one integrated team. The concept was foreign to Steele's experience. SEAL teams prided themselves on independence and self-sufficiency. But the current scenario required constant coordination between different types of military units. What do you recommend, Viper? Sarah studied her tactical displays, analyzing enemy positions and movement patterns. An idea began forming in her mind, a coordinated assault that would use both the SEALs' precision and the A-10's firepower to maximum advantage. I want to try something different, Steele. Instead of me providing support for your mission, let's plan a joint assault on the remaining targets. You designate priority targets and approach routes. I'll clear the path and provide overwatch. Steele considered the proposal. It meant abandoning traditional SEAL tactics in favor of something completely new. But their current approach wasn't working against the overwhelming enemy forces. Rodriguez, what do you think? Steele asked his second-in-command. Sir, we've eliminated 2 targets in 3 hours, and we still have 3 more to go. At this rate, we'll run out of time before completing the mission. Maybe it's time to try something different. Steele made the decision that would change his understanding of modern warfare. All right, Viper, let's try coordinated assault tactics. What's your plan? Sarah smiled as she circled overhead, already working out the details of their new approach. The proud SEAL commander was about to discover that admitting the need for help wasn't weakness. It was the first step toward achieving something greater than either force could accomplish alone. Sarah's plan was unlike anything Steele had encountered in 15 years of special operations. Instead of the SEALs operating independently while air support waited for requests, she proposed a fully integrated assault where both forces move simultaneously toward their objectives. Here's how we're going to do this. Steele, Sarah explained over the radio while circling the target area. Target 3 is in that concrete building surrounded by enemy positions. I'll make gun runs to clear the outer defensive ring while your team moves through the cleared zones. We'll time everything so that I'm hitting enemy positions just seconds before you reach them. Steele studied the tactical situation through his scope. The building containing Target 3 was indeed surrounded by enemy defensive positions, but Sarah's plan would require split-second timing. Any mistake could result in friendly fire casualties. The timing has to be perfect, Viper. My team will be moving through areas you just attacked. There's no margin for error. Trust me, Steele. The A-10 was designed for close support missions. I've trained for this exact scenario hundreds of times. Rodriguez moved closer to Steele's position. Commander, we've been pinned down for an hour using conventional tactics. Maybe it's time to trust the pilot's expertise the way she's trusting ours. Steele realized that his resistance came from pride rather than tactical considerations. Sarah had already proven her accuracy with her previous gun runs. The bigger question was whether his team could adapt to coordinated assault tactics they had never practiced before. All right. Viper, walk me through the timing. Sarah had already planned every detail of the coordinated assault. First, I'll hit the enemy positions on the east side of the building. The moment I complete that gun run, your team moves east through the cleared zone. While you're moving, I'll circle around and hit the positions on the north side. By the time you reach the building, I'll have cleared a safe approach route. What about enemy forces inside the building? That's sealed territory, Sarah replied. Once you're inside, I'll provide overwatch to prevent enemy reinforcements from reaching your position. Steele gathered his team and explained the new plan. The SEALs exchanged uncertain glances. They had never operated this closely with air support before. But their current situation left few alternatives. Remember, Steele told his team, we're moving immediately after each gun run. No hesitation, no second-guessing. We trust the pilot's timing and focus on our job. Sarah positioned her A-10 for the first attack run of the coordinated assault. Her targeting systems locked onto the eastern, defensive positions while she monitored the SEAL team's position through her sensors. Steele, beginning attack run in 30 seconds. Be ready to move the moment you hear my engines pass overhead. The A-10 dove toward the target area with devastating precision. Sarah fired controlled bursts from the GA-U-8 cannon, eliminating each enemy position in sequence. The sound of her engines roaring overhead became the signal for Steele's team to begin their advance. Steele's team moved faster than they ever had before. They sprinted through the areas Sarah had just cleared, knowing that their safety depended on perfect timing. Rodriguez led the advance while Steele coordinated with Sarah over the radio. "First phase complete," Sarah announced as she climbed for her next attack run. "Steele, you should have clear movement for another 200 meters. I'm coming around for the north positions now." The SEALs reached their intermediate position just as Sarah's second gun run began. The sound of the GI-U-8 cannon echoed through the mock city as she systematically eliminated the northern defensive positions. Steele watched in amazement as enemy targets disappeared with surgical precision. North positions eliminated. "Steele, you have a clear approach to the target building. I'll maintain overwatch while you enter." Steele's team reached the building without encountering a single enemy soldier. Sarah's coordinated attacks had cleared the entire approach route, allowing the SEALs to focus on their specialized skills rather than fighting through defensive positions. "Breaching now," Steele reported as his team prepared to enter the building. But as they approached the entrance, new enemy forces appeared from hidden positions throughout the surrounding area. "Contact!" Multiple enemy positions. Rodriguez called out as pop-up targets appeared from windows, doorways, and rooftops. Sarah was already tracking the new threats through her targeting systems. "I see them, Steele. Stay near the building walls. I'm coming in hot." What followed was the most intensive display of close air support anyone on the exercise had ever witnessed. Sarah dove her A-10 through the narrow spaces between buildings, firing precision bursts at enemy positions, while the SEALs pressed against concrete walls. Just meters away, the sound was deafening as the GA-U-8 cannon fired repeatedly. Sarah's aircraft seemed to dance through the urban terrain, appearing and disappearing between buildings as she hunted down each enemy position. Her precision was so exact that the debris from her attacks never came close to the SEAL team. "Jesus Christ," whispered Petty Officer Kim. "She's flying that thing like a fighter jet. But it's the size of a small building." Steele found himself mesmerized by Sarah's flying skills. She was making the massive A-10 perform maneuvers that seemed impossible for such a large aircraft. More importantly, her attacks were eliminating enemy threats faster than his team could have handled them using conventional tactics. "All external threats eliminated," Sarah announced after completing her attack pattern. "Steele, you're clear to complete the building clearance." Steele's team entered the building and quickly located Target 3 on the second floor. The simulated high-value enemy leader was captured without resistance. All external defenses had been eliminated by Sarah's precision attacks. "Target 3 secured," Steele reported. "Viper, that was ... impressive." But Sarah was already focusing on the next phase of their mission. "We've got 2 more targets to go." "Steele, the exercise. Controllers are probably planning even bigger surprises for the final objectives." Steele looked at his watch and realized they had captured Target 3 in just 25 minutes using coordinated tactics. Their previous targets had taken over an hour each using traditional SEAL methods. "Rodriguez, what's our ammunition and equipment status?" "Full combat load remaining, sir." The coordinated approach saved us from engaging in extended firefights. "We're in better shape now than when the exercise started." Steele was beginning to understand the true value of joint operations. Instead of air support helping ground forces or ground forces helping air support, they were operating as a single integrated unit. Each element used its strengths to complement the other's capabilities. "Viper, I'm starting to see why the Pentagon wants to test these tactics. We just accomplished more in 25 minutes than we managed in the previous 3 hours. We're just getting started." "Steele, wait until you see what we can do against the final 2 targets." Sarah banked her A-10 toward the next objective, already planning the coordinated assaults that would complete their mission. The proud SEAL commander was about to learn that true military excellence came not from individual superiority, but from perfect teamwork between different fighting forces. Target 4 presented the most challenging scenario yet. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value enemy commander was hiding in a multi-story building surrounded by civilian hostages. Any attack would need to distinguish between enemy combatants and innocent civilians while operating in extremely close quarters. Sarah studied the building through her targeting systems while Steele's team approached from the south. The structure was larger than previous targets, with multiple entry points and numerous windows where civilians might be located. Steele, this one's complicated. I'm seeing heat signatures throughout the building, but my sensors can't distinguish between civilians and combatants from this altitude. We need eyes on the ground for target identification. Steele appreciated Sarah's caution. Previous targets had been purely military scenarios, but civilian casualties would result in automatic mission failure. The exercise controllers were testing whether coordinated air-ground tactics could handle the most delicate situations in modern warfare. Understood. Viper, my team will provide target identification while you maintain overwatch for external threats. We'll need to adapt our coordination for precision operations. Rodriguez positioned his team around the building's perimeter while Steele studied the structure through his scope. Pop-up targets representing civilians appeared randomly in windows, while enemy combatants moved between floors inside the building. I count at least 15 civilian signatures and approximately 8 enemy combatants, Steele reported. The enemies are using the civilians as human shields, moving between floors to avoid detection. Sarah monitored external approaches while Steele's team prepared for the most delicate phase of their mission. She had identified several enemy reinforcement routes, but any airstrikes near the building would risk civilian casualties. Steele, I'm tracking enemy vehicles approaching from the west. They'll reach your position in approximately 10 minutes. We need to complete this target quickly or risk being surrounded again. But the building clearance couldn't be rushed. Steele's team entered through multiple entry points, moving carefully through rooms filled with civilian pop-up targets. Each enemy combatant had to be identified and neutralized without harming nearby civilians. Room-by-room clearance is taking too long, Rodriguez reported from the second floor. At this rate, enemy reinforcements will arrive before we reach the target. Steele faced an impossible tactical dilemma. Rushing the building clearance risked civilian casualties, but moving too slowly would allow enemy reinforcements to trap his team inside the structure. Traditional SEAL tactics offered no solution for this scenario. Viper, we need a new approach. Can you provide precision support inside the building? Sarah had been considering the same question. The A-10 cannon was designed for destroying tanks, not for precision work inside buildings full of civilians. But the A-10 carried other weapon systems designed for surgical strikes. Negative on the cannon, Steele, but I'm carrying precision-guided missiles that might work for specific targets. If you can designate exact enemy positions, I might be able to help. Steele's team carried laser designators that could mark specific targets for guided weapons. But using missiles inside a building full of civilians was extremely dangerous. Even with precision guidance systems? That's a hell of a risk. Viper, one targeting error and we simulate killing innocent people. I know. Steele, but enemy reinforcements are 6 minutes out. And your team is still on the second floor of a 4-story building. We need to try something. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio from inside the building. Commander, we've located the target on the 4th floor, but he's surrounded by civilian hostages. We can't get a clear shot without risking casualties. Steele realized that conventional tactics had reached their limit. The exercise controllers had designed a scenario that required perfect coordination between air and ground forces, using capabilities that neither could achieve alone. Viper, can your missiles penetrate specific rooms without affecting adjacent areas? Sarah checked her weapon systems and targeting computers. The precision missiles carried small warheads designed for surgical strikes, but using them inside buildings required extraordinary accuracy. If you can designate the exact room and confirm no civilians in adjacent areas, I can put a missile through a specific window. The warhead is designed to minimize collateral damage, but there's still risk to nearby rooms. Steele's team spent precious minutes confirming civilian locations throughout the fourth floor. The target enemy commander was holding position in a corner room with no civilians in adjacent areas. But enemy reinforcements were now just 3 minutes away. Rodriguez, can you get a laser designator on the target room window? Affirmative, Commander. I have a clear line of sight from the building across the street. Laser designation ready? Steele made the most difficult decision of his military career. Viper were designating the target room. Precision strike authorized. Sarah banked her A-10 toward the building, her targeting systems locked onto Rodriguez's laser designation. The precision missile would travel through the designated window and explode inside the specific room. But any error in targeting or timing could result in simulated civilian casualties. Missile away, Sarah announced. Impact in 15 seconds. All friendly forces take cover. The precision missile streaked through the air and entered the building through the designated window with perfect accuracy. The simulated explosion eliminated the target enemy commander while leaving all civilian hostages unharmed. Target 4 neutralized, Steele reported. All civilians secure. No casualties. But enemy reinforcements had reached the building's perimeter. Steele's team found themselves trapped on the upper floors while enemy forces surrounded the structure below. Steele, you've got enemy forces entering the building from all ground-level entrances. They're moving up the stairwells toward your position. Sarah could see the tactical situation developing through her sensors. The SEAL team was about to be trapped in a multi-story firefight with no escape route. But she was beginning to understand how coordinated tactics could solve even this seemingly impossible situation. Steele, I want you to trust me completely for the next few minutes. I'm going to clear an escape route, but you need to follow my instructions exactly. Steele heard the determination in Sarah's voice and realized she was planning something extraordinary. What do you need us to do, Viper? Get your team to the roof of the building. I'm going to create a distraction that will draw enemy forces away from your position, then provide cover while you fast-trope down to ground level. Rodriguez stared at Steele in disbelief. Fast-trope from a 4-story building while under fire? Commander, that's beyond dangerous. But Steele was learning to trust Sarah's tactical judgment. Her coordinated attacks had worked perfectly so far, and conventional tactics offered no solution for their current situation. All units, move to the roof immediately. Prepare for fast rope extraction under fire. As Steele's team reached the roof, Sarah was already beginning the most daring close air support mission of her career. She was about to turn the massive A-10 into a precision instrument for one of the most dangerous rescue operations ever attempted. Sarah's plan was audacious beyond anything attempted in previous joint training exercises. She intended to use her A-10 as both a distraction and a shield, while the SEAL team executed a fast rope extraction from a 4-story building surrounded by enemy forces. Steele, I'm going to make multiple low-altitude passes around the building to draw enemy attention away from the roof. While they're focused on me, deploy your ropes and get your team to the ground as fast as possible. Steele's team had practiced fast trope operations countless times, but never from a building under siege while an A-10 provided overhead cover. The margin for error was virtually zero. Rodriguez, get the ropes secured to the roof structure. Kim, you go first and establish security at ground level. Barnes, you follow and set up overwatch positions. Sarah began her attack pattern by diving toward the building at extremely low altitude. The roar of her twin engines echoed through the mock city as she made her first pass just meters above the rooftop. Enemy forces throughout the building focused their attention on the aircraft, exactly as she had planned. First pass complete. Steele, you should have 30 seconds of distraction while enemy forces track my movement. Rodriguez deployed the fast ropes over the building's edge while Sarah climbed for her second pass. The thick ropes dropped 4 stories to the ground, providing the SEAL team's only escape route from their trapped position. Kim grabbed the first rope and began her descent, sliding down the thick line with practiced speed. But as she approached ground level, enemy forces near the building began firing at her position. Sarah immediately responded with precision cannon fire that eliminated the threats without damaging the building structure. Ground level secure, Kim reported as she established a defensive position. Enemy forces neutralized on the east side. Barnes followed down the second rope while Sarah made another low-altitude pass. Her presence overhead continued to distract enemy forces, preventing them from concentrating their fire on the descending SEALs. But the exercise controllers had one more surprise planned. As Steele prepared to descend the rope, new enemy forces appeared on rooftops throughout the surrounding area. Sniper positions opened fire on both the SEAL team and Sarah's aircraft. Contact! Sniper fire from multiple rooftops. Steele called out as training rounds impacted near his position, Sarah's. A-10 shuddered as simulated sniper fire struck her aircraft. The exercise controllers were testing whether air support could function effectively while taking damage from ground-based threats. I'm taking hits, Steele, engine damage simulated on my starboard side. I can maintain flight operations, but my maneuverability is reduced. Steele realized that Sarah was continuing her support mission even while her aircraft was under attack. The dedication was exactly what he expected from elite military personnel, but he had never seen it from an Air Force pilot before. Viper, break off if your aircraft is compromised. My team can handle the ground situation. Negative, Steele. You're not on the ground yet, and those snipers will cut your team apart during the extraction. I'm staying on station. Sarah banked her damaged A-10 toward the sniper positions, her targeting systems tracking multiple threats simultaneously. Even with simulated engine damage, she lined up precision attacks on each rooftop position. The GAU-8 cannon fired in controlled bursts. As Sarah eliminated sniper positions one by one, her damaged aircraft handled differently, but her years of training allowed her to compensate for the reduced performance. Sniper positions eliminated. Steele, you're clear to complete the extraction. Steele slid down the rope with Rodriguez close behind. As his boots hit the ground, he found his team in perfect defensive positions around the building's base. Sarah's coordinated support had allowed them to escape from an impossible tactical situation. All personnel on the ground, Steele reported. Extraction complete, but the mission wasn't finished. Target 5, the final objective, was located in a heavily fortified compound on the outskirts of the mock city. Intelligence reports indicated that the area was defended by the largest enemy force they had encountered yet. Viper, what's your aircraft status for the final target? Sarah checked her systems carefully. The simulated engine damage had reduced her fuel efficiency and weapons capacity, but the A-10 was designed to operate effectively even with severe battle damage. I can complete one more major engagement, Steele. After that, fuel and ammunition will be critically low. We need to make the final assault count. Steele gathered his team for a quick briefing on the last target. The fortified compound was surrounded by defensive positions, vehicle patrols, and heavy weapons emplacements. It was designed to be the ultimate test of coordinated air-ground tactics. This is what we've been building toward, Steele told his team. Every coordinated attack we've practiced is preparation for this final objective. The compound is too heavily defended for either air power or ground forces to handle alone. Rodriguez studied the target area through his scope. Commander, that compound would normally require a full company of Marines supported by heavy artillery. How are we supposed to take it with 8 SEALs and 1 damaged aircraft? Steele looked up at Sarah's A-10 circling overhead. The aircraft showed visible signs of simulated battle damage, but it continued flying with the same precision as when the exercise began. Because we're not fighting as separate forces anymore, Rodriguez. We're fighting as one integrated unit that combines the best capabilities of both air and ground power. Sarah's voice came over the radio as she completed her reconnaissance of the final target. Steele, I count approximately 40 enemy positions around the compound, plus vehicle patrols and heavy weapons. This is going to require everything we've learned about coordination. What do you recommend, Viper? Sarah had been developing the most complex coordinated assault plan of her career. The final target would test every skill both forces had developed during the previous engagements. We're going to execute a synchronized assault that uses deception, precision timing, and overwhelming concentrated force. But it's going to require perfect trust between our forces. Steele realized that the exercise had transformed him from a proud SEL commander who believed his team could handle any situation alone into a joint operations leader who understood the power of true military coordination. Tell me what you need, Viper. My team is ready to trust your judgment completely. As Sarah outlined her plan for the final assault, Steele understood that they were about to attempt something that would either demonstrate the ultimate potential of joint operations or result in spectacular failure. The outcome would depend on skills, courage, and trust that neither force could have achieved independently. Sarah's plan for the final assault was the most ambitious, coordinated operation ever attempted in the Joint Training Program. The fortified compound required a three-phase attack that would utilize every capability both forces had developed during the exercise. Phase 1, Deception, Sarah explained over the radio. I'm going to attack the compound's eastern defenses with everything I have left. This will draw enemy forces toward that side and make them think we're launching a frontal assault. Steele studied the compound through his scope, understanding Sarah's strategy. While you're attacking the east, my team infiltrates from the west where defenses will be lightest. We create chaos inside the compound while enemy forces are focused on your air attack. Exactly. Phase 2, I shift to precision support for your team inside the compound. You designate specific targets, I eliminate them with surgical strikes. Phase 3, we extract together under coordinated cover fire. Rodriguez checked his equipment one final time. Commander, this plan requires us to be inside an enemy compound while an A-10 is dropping ordnance around our position. That's beyond dangerous. Steele looked at his team, seeing uncertainty mixed with determination in their faces. The exercise had pushed all of them far beyond their normal operational parameters. We've proven that coordinated tactics work, Rodriguez. Now we find out if we can execute them under maximum pressure. Sarah began her approach toward the compound's eastern defenses. Her damaged A-10 handled sluggishly, but she maintained precise control as she lined up for the most intensive gun run of the exercise. Beginning deception attack in 30 seconds. Steele, get your team in position for western infiltration. Steele's SEALs moved swiftly through the desert terrain toward the compound's rear entrance. The sounds of Sarah's attack echoed across the training area as her GIU-8 cannon pounded the eastern defensive positions. The deception worked perfectly. Enemy forces throughout the compound rushed toward the eastern defenses, believing they faced a major air assault. The western side of the compound became lightly defended, exactly as Sarah had predicted. Western approach is clear, Steele whispered into his radio. Beginning infiltration now. Steele's team breached the compound's rear fence and moved through the facility like ghosts. Their years of training in close-quarters combat served them well as they advanced toward the central building containing Target 5, but as they approached the main structure, Steele realized the exercise controllers had saved their most challenging scenario for last. The building was filled with both enemy combatants and civilian hostages, creating the most complex targeting environment possible. Viper. We're inside the compound, but the situation is extremely complicated. Multiple hostage scenarios throughout the central building. Sarah had expended most of her ammunition on the deception attack, but she still carried 2 precision missiles for surgical strikes. More importantly, her targeting systems could track movement throughout the compound with extraordinary detail. Steele, I'm tracking heat signatures throughout the building. Looks like 12 enemy combatants and approximately 20 civilian hostages. The enemy forces are moving hostages between rooms, probably trying to use them as human shields. Steele's team reached the building's entrance, but they found themselves facing an impossible tactical situation. Every room contained a mixture of enemies and civilians, making conventional assault tactics useless. Traditional room clearing won't work here, Rodriguez reported. Enemy forces have positioned themselves so that any direct assault risks civilian casualties. Steele realized they needed a completely new approach that combined the SEAL's precision with Sarah's aerial perspective. Viper, can you track individual movement patterns inside the building? If we can predict enemy positions, maybe we can time our assault to minimize hostage risk. Sarah studied her targeting displays, analyzing movement patterns throughout the building. Her systems could distinguish between different heat signatures based on movement speed and behavior patterns. I've got an idea. Steele, enemy combatants move differently than hostages. They patrol specific routes while civilians stay in static positions. If I can map their movement patterns, you can time your room entries to catch enemies away from civilian groups. The concept required split-second timing and perfect communication. But it offered the only solution for the complex hostage scenario. Sarah began tracking and predicting enemy movement patterns while Steele's team prepared for precision room entries. Enemy combatant moving from room 3 to room 5 in 15 seconds, Sarah reported. Civilians remaining in room 3. Window for room entry in 10 seconds. Steele's team moved with extraordinary precision, entering rooms exactly when Sarah predicted they would be clear of civilians but still contain their targets. The coordination was so precise that it seemed like a choreographed dance. Target acquired, room 3, Steele reported as his team neutralized their first enemy combatant. Moving to next position. Sarah continued tracking enemy movements while coordinating the SEAL's advance through the building. Her aerial perspective allowed her to see tactical opportunities that ground forces could never detect on their own. Steele, enemy commander, is moving toward the exit with 3 hostages. If you can position your team at the north stairwell, you can intercept him without endangering the civilians. Steele's team raced through the building, using Sarah's intelligence to position themselves perfectly. As the enemy commander reached the stairwell with his hostages, Steele's team was waiting in exactly the right position to make a clean capture. Target 5 secured, Steele announced. All hostages safe. Mission complete. But even as Steele reported mission success, he realized that something fundamental had changed during the exercise. His team had just completed an impossible mission by abandoning everything. He had believed about SEAL independence and superiority. Sarah's voice came over the radio as she circled the compound in her damaged A-10. Outstanding work. Steele, that was the most complex coordinated operation I've ever been part of. As Steele's team secured the compound and prepared for extraction, he found himself looking up at Sarah's aircraft with a completely different perspective than when the exercise began. The A-10 that he had dismissed as slow and outdated had just proven itself capable of precision operations that rivaled the SEAL's own capabilities. Viper, Steele said slowly, I owe you an apology. When this exercise started, I thought air support was just backup for ground forces. I was wrong. We were both wrong, Steele. I thought ground forces just needed air power to succeed. Turns out we're both stronger when we work together than either of us could be alone. Rodriguez approached Steele as they prepared for extraction. Commander, in 15 years of SEAL operations, I've never seen anything like what we just accomplished. We need to completely rethink how special operations teams coordinate with air support. Steele nodded, realizing that the exercise controllers had achieved their goal. The joint training program wasn't just about testing new tactics. It was about changing the fundamental mindset of military leaders who had become too focused on their individual service capabilities. The Pentagon was right, Steele admitted. Modern warfare requires integration between different types of forces. We just proved that coordinated operations can accomplish things that neither air power nor ground forces could achieve independently. As Sarah's damaged, A-10 headed back to base in Steele's team boarded their extraction helicopter. Both forces understood that they had participated in something historic. The exercise had demonstrated that the future of military operations lay not in service rivalry, but in perfect coordination between different military capabilities. Steele would return to his SEAL team with a completely new understanding of joint operations. Sarah would continue flying her A-10 with renewed appreciation for the incredible skills of ground forces. Most importantly, both had learned that admitting the need for help wasn't weakness. It was the foundation of true military excellence. The proud SEAL commander had indeed admitted defeat, but only to discover a victory greater than anything he could have achieved alone.